With that being said, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, Steve.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. The bad news is I'm not performing for you today. The good news is I'm not performing for you today. Anyway, my name is Steve Bertani. I am the managing director of the Arrow Rock Lyceum Theater. This is going into my 17th year with the organization. I came back in 2006. Has anybody been to the Lyceum Theater? Has anybody not heard of the Lyceum Theater before? Excellent. That means there's room for growth. Awesome. So I like that. People say, oh, that's not good. It's it's very good. That means we can grow our business because there's still people out there that haven't heard. So anyway, so the Lyceum Theater, we'll kind of explain what this building is all about, but the Lyceum Theater was an old Baptist church that was built in 1872 in the historic village of Arrow Rock. Arrow Rock is a National Historic Landmark on the registry, so the theater goes along with this. But this was an old Baptist church built in, I believe, 1872. The building still stands there that turned into a theater, and that's what it looked like back in the 1800s. So there's a couple of married couples that actually bought the old purpose building, and it was vacant for several years, and they decided to open a theater. They had gone to Virginia, I think, and saw a theater called the Barter Theater and saw a show there. It was very similar, and they decided that they'd come back to Arrow Rock and take over this building and open a theater. So that was what it looked like back then. We opened our first production on July 5th of 1961, and it was literally everything was just done in this building. That is the theater. Back then, from 1961 to 1992. And that's what it looked like when they put some paint on it. They changed the roof, they slapped a sign on there, and it was your good old summer theater. That's some professionals worked at, a lot of college kids worked at, so very, very typical summer theater in a very small old church building. Everybody sat in the church pews. I wish I had a picture. I need to find some pictures of people sitting in the church pews at the show. That right there used to be how you bought your tickets, through the window. Before you went in, everybody got dressed up. There was no air conditioning in the theater at all for several years, so they crammed in there. I think they said they sat about 175 people in that space, so they were crammed in there in the heat. So, and in 1993 is when we opened our newly expanded and intimate 416-seat theater. This is what the theater looks like today. All right, so you can see that obviously we've done a lot of renovating to the building. The building has been expanded all the way to the back. So when people drive up to the Lyceum Theater, they look at the front of the building and say, oh, it's a community theater with a bunch of people in town putting on some plays. How cute, okay? And they have no idea what this theater is all about and what is behind it. Because of the historic landmark, when they built this building, they had to disguise the big auditorium so it wasn't standing out like a sore thumb in the historic Arrow Rock. So it's very well hidden behind, so people have no idea what is behind those doors. So this front building, which was used to the old theater, now serves as our lobby. So that's the entrance point to the theater. And you walk on through there. And you can sit in there. We have a bar, concessions. You can go in there, restrooms, and then you go back to the auditorium. And then this is what our theater looks like today. This is the 416-seat auditorium where we have all of our shows. And it's not empty all the time, I swear. There are actually people that actually go to the theater. So we now are considered one of Missouri's oldest professional theaters, second to the Muni in St. Louis, which celebrated, I think, their 100th anniversary back about 4 or 5 years ago. I think they're in now their 103rd season. We are moving into our 61st season at the theater. And in 2019, we were the first theater in the state to receive the Missouri Historic Theater designation. There's been legislation that was passed, and we were actually working on being called the State Theater Missouri because there are some theaters nationwide, like in North Carolina, there's some theaters that are considered the state theater. State legislation didn't want to do that because, believe it or not, Missouri is a heavy arts state, and there are a lot of theaters across what I call the east and west coast of Missouri, in St. Louis and Kansas City, with the Repertory Theater St. Louis, Kansas City rep. So They didn't want to give that specific designation, so what they did was they came up with legislation to say, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to name theaters. They can register as a historic theater if you've been in operation for 50 years or more and you've produced a professional production. There's some criteria that has to be met to get that designation, but we were proud to be in 2019 and receive the designation as the first Missouri Historic Theater. Today, over a half a century later, we continue to entertain audiences in the beautiful and historic setting of the village of Arrow Rock. If you've not been to the village of Arrow Rock, it's a town of 56 people. That is it. Every time I tell people, hey, we live in, they said, what? Did you say 500? No, 56 people, okay? The theater doubles the population when we're in operation because of the number of people that we hire at the theater, but it's very unique. If you haven't been to Arrow Rock and you like history, a great town to visit in the summer months. It's got a great state park. It's got a visitor center. There's the J. Houston Tavern. That is the oldest continuously operating restaurant west of the Mississippi. The movie Tom Sawyer, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, if you've seen that movie, which is where Jodie Foster got her start, was filmed in Arrow Rock. The entire movie was filmed in the town of Arrow Rock, so a really great historic town to take it all in, walk around. They do tours. There's a preservation society, and then you can make a day of it, eat, and then come to the theater. Dun, 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 and this is what it looks like with people actually in it. There are people that come to the theater, so that is just kind of what our auditorium looks like when we do a performance with a full house of 416 people in there. That is our stage. We do a variety of shows and events throughout the year because we actually have about 35,000, sometimes it's closer to 40,000 patrons a year that come to see Broadway caliber productions and special events created by our professional artists that are chosen around the country. We actually select nationwide. It's not just people in Missouri, it's not just local talent, but we actually hire from a nationwide pool of people. We get about, I would say, probably close to 15,000 headshots and resumes from actors from around the United States wanting to work for us. We have a casting director out in New York City. We spend several months in New York in the spring to cast our shows for the season. And all of our technicians, we go to a lot of the conferences where a lot of the technicians you choose from that are majoring in technical theater. That's where we get a lot of our production personnel. But yeah, we have to sift through that to probably us seeing about 1,000 people, so 15,000 to 1,000, to probably hiring about 150 people for the season, which is from front of house staff all the way to our backstage crew personnel, our directors or designers or choreographers and all that. So they are carefully chosen when we do that. This is just the type of thing that we do. We're a summer theater, and typically the Lyceum has always gone from a June through September type of schedule. We do a Christmas production at the end of the year, and then people say, well, what do you do in the off months? We take a break, for one, because we need it after producing that many shows. But we started several years ago on utilizing the space, saying, we got a theater that's sitting here empty, and how can we make some more revenue and grow our business and continue to do things that get people to the theater, introduce them to the theater, create some other things outside of just theatrical productions. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so we have to fundraise as well. We have individual contributors, and a lot of nonprofits do galas every year to raise money. Well, we just felt people got so tired of galas every year and all these organizations, so we said, what can we do differently? So we started bringing in some touring shows, and the first touring show I brought in back, this is a funny story, 2006 is when I came in. 2007, I said, what does the theater do when I'm learning the organization? What's the theater do in the off season? Let's make some money in off season. Well, there was a show that was very successful at the time that was making a lot of money for theaters. And I thought about bringing it into the Lyceum Theater. I thought, well, this could be interesting. Well, the first show I ever brought into the theater was Menopause the Musical. Yes. It was so people thought I was crazy. It was a pretty big risk for me to do, but I saw this show, and it was a great touring show. It sold out. It's 4 performances that we brought to the theater. I thought the board was probably, when I said Menopause the Musical, they were going to fire me for bringing it in, but it was very successful, and it was so successful that we brought it a second year in for an extended run, and then we brought it in a third year. 3 years in a row, the show netted $75,000 in ticket revenue after we presented. So that was just an opportunity when you think outside the box and present something that the theater was not typically known for doing for 60 years. That was something that we did back then. So then we kind of expanded it to some concerts. We have brought in groups like the Texas Tenors, Sawyer Brown, some country music artists. We have brought in Travis Tritt back in the summer of July of 2021. We did an evening of Travis Tritt with his solo acoustic performance. So we do things like that. We did a thing this past February called Songwriter City. These are two well-known country artists, country songwriters, Paul Overstreet and Scotty Emmerich. They both have written songs for Kenny Chesney, Blake Shelton, Toby Keith. Scotty on the left tours with Toby Keith on a regular basis. So they have written for Randy Travis, Willie Nelson. They have an extensive resume, and they spent about 90 minutes at our theater. It was just two guys, two guitars, and intimate in the evening. It was like sitting in a living room watching these guys sip on a few bottles of water and maybe a bottle of wine and maybe a couple of beers back there. They're country music artists. They like to drink. But it was like sitting in a living room, just having a little bit of a party, and they just sang for 2 hours and strummed their guitars. So it was a really, really nice evening for us to have too. Then we do what we're known for, is our full-scale productions. This was The Little Mermaid in 2021. So we do full-scale Broadway musical productions and plays. And as you can see, all of our sets, believe it or not, these are not touring shows, because a lot of people think that we bring in touring productions, that these are troupes that come in, because I get a lot of our audience members say, so where do they go next? Home. That's what I usually answer. Because they come, we bring everybody in, we rehearse our show in Arrow Rock, we build all of our sets, our costumes, everything is built on site in our productions facilities. We do everything. We rehearse it. We create all the music there. So everybody comes together, the entire actors and creative team, and they put on this show. And what you see on the costumes, I mean, we treat it like a full Broadway production. We don't rent our costumes. Everything is built at the Lyceum, ground up. This production had probably about 250 costumes that were built entirely by our costume department of 4 people. 250 costumes built from the ground floor up. So very specific. That we do this, so we try to make our productions very unique. That's another production, our production of Little Mermaid, another photo of that, which is a cast photo. So look at the costume details. I mean, this is all built by our costume designer and our team, so nothing was rented. We can rent these out to make money. That's why we built some packages. These are called costume packages. So a lot of theaters do that to make some extra money. And to make revenue is you can build costumes and you can store them, and then you can rent them out to other theaters. Other theaters that are doing productions may not have the budget to build their own costumes and sets. So what they do is they look for theaters that do that. So they'll contact you and say, hey, can we rent your costume package for Little Mermaid? Yes, here's the price, $15,000 to rent the entire 250 costumes for a run of a month or whatever it might be. Okay, so you can charge pretty well for it, which is costing them probably a lot less than building it from scratch themselves. Okay. Production of Singing in the Rain in 2021. This was originally our 2020 season that we wound up moving into our 2021 season that got postponed. So that's our production of Singing in the Rain. So you can kind of see how we build our sets, our costumes. Singing in the Rain. Yes, that is rain. It's not Photoshopped. That is rain. We actually had it rain on stage every performance for the show. So it was very unique because everybody's wondering where the rain would go after it rained for a total of 3 minutes on stage every night. So, but we figured out we had to rebuild our stage after the show, but it worked out pretty well for us. Our production of Sister Act that we did in 2021. Again, all the costumes and sets are built right there on site. So that's that. And then we do our annual production of our Christmas Carol. That's on stage. This is a play. We do some plays. We do a lot of murder mystery plays because they go over really well. This was Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express. I have to say it like that. Murder on the Orient Express. So that was one of our plays that we did, a non-musical show. And currently on stage right now through April 10th is Elvis the Musical. This is the U.S. professional premiere on our stage. So it's never been done and produced. So we opened it last Thursday on March 31st. It does run through April 10th this Sunday. So I got a show at 2 o'clock today I got to get to. And then we run it the rest of the week. So if you're looking for something to do, come see Elvis the Musical because this guy's really, really good. He's from Las Vegas. His name's Daniel Durston. He's done it nationwide. Kind of looks like Elvis, doesn't he? Sounds like him too. So this is actually the first biographical musical of Elvis Presley that takes him. It really covers his early years of when he went in his childhood, his early years when him and Sam Phillips really became pretty well known in what they did. So a really great show for 2 hours at the theater. And then, like I said, we do concerts. Coming up, April 24th is the legendary Count Basie Orchestra on our stage. This is going to be great. We've never had a full orchestra in our auditorium on stage, ever. Now, our musicals that we do, we have an orchestra pit in a way, so we have live musicians that we hire as well to play all of our musicals, but this is going to be really cool because this is an awesome orchestra. It's like the Glenn Miller Orchestra, you know, but this is probably the most explosive force in jazz music is this orchestra right here on April 24th, so we're looking forward to that. Then, our 2022 season, an entire season of Lyceum premieres have never been produced on our stage, so that is our season 6. So first, the Oscar award-winning DreamWorks film Shrek. Once upon a time, there was a little ogre named Shrek. So great fairy tale, family, kids, great show. We typically open with a family musical in the season, so Shrek the Musical, June 2nd through 12th. Jersey Boys, these 4 guys, one of the greatest success stories in pop music, 4 blue-collar guys who became just overnight successes. So the story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, so if you know Frankie Valli music, Four Seasons, these guys are great. All the guys that are coming in, got one more guy to hire, but all 4 of these guys have done the show, either on Broadway or the national tour that are coming in. So these guys know the show. Dreamgirls, Broadway musical that's based on the aspirations of musical acts such as the Supremes, the Shirelles, James Brown. Awesome show. You might have seen the movie. Who was in the movie? Jennifer Hudson and Jamie Foxx was in it as well. So if you've seen that movie, that's kind of based on that. Clue. Here we go. Clue. All right. So everybody knows the board game. So there was the 1985 Paramount motion picture that was based on the Hasbro board game Clue. So a great farce, whodunit murder mystery type show coming to our stage August 12th through 21st. Who doesn't like Robin Hood? The Adventures of Robin Hood on our stage. So this is going to be some swashbuckling fun. So come see Sherwood, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, September 2nd through 11th. And the music of Rodgers and Hammerstein. Rodgers and Hammerstein is one of the greatest musical composers of all time that wrote shows like Carousel, Oklahoma. So you know songs, so it's going to be a full night of all their music, songs, and dancing on stage. So that's a great show to end the summer through October 2nd. And then our 8th annual production of a Lyceum holiday tradition called the Charles Dickens Great Classic, A Christmas Carol, hits our stage. So single tickets go on sale on Monday, April 11th, so we're looking forward to that. So we have all 6 of these shows and then our holiday productions. So these go on sale Monday on April 11th, so we're looking forward to that. And that's our theater, and we look forward to seeing you at the theater. And I got a few minutes to spare. How about that? So you can ask me any questions if you still have questions for this gentleman over here. You got 4 minutes, I think, or something like that, right? So,
you mentioned that you're doing more than just theater plays,
yes,
which is great in the concerts, and I attended one 3 years ago, painting and music and
outrageous.
yeah,
Yes.
which was very cool.
Yeah.
The Dickens Christmas Carol, I've gone to like the last 6 years in a row, except 2020 because of COVID, and you did it online.
We did.
And I just want to say how much I appreciated what went into that, but I really enjoyed how they showed a couple guys in one of the Zoom squares that did sound effects. And it was just so cool to see what they would use to make sound effects for what was going on over here. And it was just very educational to watch.
It was we did a virtual production of A Christmas Carol. A lot of theaters who were shut down during that time were trying to figure out ways to keep their theater relevant during that time and just keep people engaged in the theater. I mean, virtual productions don't take precedence over the experience of live theater and being there. It's just totally different. You're not going to get the same experience of doing it. But we did experiment with something we've never done before by being film producers in a way. So this was an entire area that was all filmed on stage. We had a revolving camera that spun around the stage to our narrator, who was artistic director, Quinn Gresham, who is the producing artistic director of the theater, my business partner. he narrated the whole show because he had written the adaptation of the Charles Dickens Christmas Carol classic. He directs the show every year, so he wound up narrating, and then him and our creative director, our director of production, created all these sound effects. So it was everything you heard, like door slamming. You watched him slam the door, or shoes walking. He kind of would put some shoes, do all that. So it was really unique. And then we put it out there, and people bought tickets, and people could watch it during Christmas week. And we had it for one night only. That we had about 3,000 people view the production virtually. So it was really neat production and something totally new and different and original. But we will never do it again. So,
the question is, where do the actors stay when they come to town?
we have our own employee housing right outside town. We have our own campus. We have about a 24-room kind of dormitory style, which has a clubhouse where they do all their cooking, their laundry, they hang out and all that. And then we just built an apartment. I just got that constructed. That opened in 2019. We have one unit that has 2 4-bedroom units, private rooms, so we can stick some more because we ran out of housing because of growth and because of all the people we hired. So, but we've got more property, and we're probably going to build more apartments in the years to come. So
I know that you mentioned you guys have single sale tickets. Do you guys have packages?
we do. Yeah, we have season subscriptions that are on sale. So if you want to subscribe to all 6 shows this summer and lock seats in, you can certainly do that. I've got brochures here that I just forgot to put on tables, so we'll get those to you. But yeah, season subscriptions are great because you have seat ownership. You go to a certain production all the time, and we have over 670 season subscribers going into 2022. So that's exciting, and then it's great because you get to go to see every show, and you get a nice discount, and you get priority ticket sales for everything else when they go on sale as a season subscriber. When single tickets go on sale, when you get your subscription renewals, you can buy your single tickets early. Any concerts, you get notified to buy your tickets before they go on sale to the general public. So there are benefits to that as well. So good question. Yes, ma'am.
Several friends at work went to see Elvis, and they just raved about it.
It's a fun show. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been getting some really good comments on that. So it's a show in the works. We didn't get to preview it because it just literally we got Act 2 written from the writers 3 weeks before we went into rehearsal. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done with the book. There's some flow issues. Just like any new production, it goes through a creative process. We didn't have the time to do it, so it does need some work. But it works. Look, it's over 40 Elvis songs, and that's what the show's about, is listening to Elvis Presley music. It's song after song after song after song. So one more question, and I think we're going to have to wrap it up.
We were up there Friday for the Elvis show musical.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
So my 11-year-old went, and he particularly enjoyed the Anne Margaret scene. We had a little talk about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if anybody knew anything about Elvis and Anne Margaret in the days, that their little fling and their chemistry on the set of movies.
So my question is, we've been up there to several of your performances, but from day one to the final curtain drop, what's the timeline to put a performance on, and the set development and all that?
If it's the first show of the season, we get about 2 weeks. If it's once a show goes up, because they overlap, once a show goes up, we go to rehearsal for the next show. They get maybe 7 days total to rehearse a show. And then we go into tech for 2 days to get all the sound, lights, everything together. So we tell our people when they come here, because of our time constraints, make sure you learn your script, what we call off book, have it memorized, know your songs, know your lyrics, because you don't have a lot of time to get to show up. The director gets it blocked and up on its feet fast, so then they can work on transitions and scene work, but there's not a lot of time to do character development, so method actors don't work for us. It just doesn't work that way in our business, but yeah, it's a really, really short, tight schedule how we can knock these big Broadway shows up in the matter of a week and a half to 2 weeks. And then they don't always rehearse every day because some are in the show that's running and then they're going to rehearsal that night for the next show. Thank you very much. So thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it.